I want to clean up a few things that we've touched on so we can close a couple of doors in the conversation, and then move more in the direction of fleshing out what does Mary mean. And this will be continuing to address some of the concerns that Aaron was raising, like, well, what if somebody says, hey, what about these prayers where we're saying Mary save us and all this? And so I want to give like a clear and final demonstration that what you see in a Marian tradition properly is Mary directed toward Christ,
right,
and not directed toward Mary as the highest thing that there is.
Yeah.
And one I mentioned already in reference to visual symbols of Mary, where the visual symbol of Mary is Mary with the Christ. And so what you have is this symbol of if you are like Mary, I mean, I'm not personalizing it or psychologizing the symbol, but if you are like Mary, then you bring Christ into the world. Or if you as a community are like Mary and receptive toward God, then you bring Christ into the world. And so that symbol is not directed toward Mary. That symbol is directed toward the bringing of Christ into the world.
Right.
But then I'm going to look at a couple of prayers, and this is the first part of the Synecdemos. You can find online. This is a Greek Orthodox prayer book. The first part is available in English translation, easy to find online on the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America. So I just picked out a few different Marian prayers from that, and I will confess that these are the ones that I really, really liked. And so there may be others that somebody who's critical of Mary might say, oh, I like this one, but I don't like that other one, or something like that.
Yeah.
But these, I think, all make the case that in a prayer to Mary properly conceived, or a prayer through Mary properly conceived, is very Christocentric. So I'll just read through a couple of these. Blessed Theotokos, the good earth that grew the unsown wheat that saved the world, make me worthy to eat of it and be saved. And just, I mean, poetically and symbolically, like regarding Mary as the earth that grew this unsown wheat, like this miraculous growth that occurs within Mary. I mean, it's nice as poetry and it's nice as symbolism, but the point that I really want to make here is that the whole purpose of this prayer is I want to be worthy to partake of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And then another one, all Holy One, you are the table of the bread of life, who out of mercy came down from above, giving new life to the world. Make me also worthy, who am now unworthy, to eat from it with fear and live. And again, you have the same idea that the whole prayer here is about make me worthy, because it is my desire that I may participate in the nature of Christ, that I may partake of Christ. And then I also will mention the symbol in this one where it says Mary is the table of the bread of life. So Mary is the table, and the bread and the cup, they're sitting on this table,
mm-hmm.
But Mary is the thing that brings that into the world. Like,
right.
She's not the bread, she's not the wine, but if you don't have the table, then there's there's no offering, there's no partaking. So like that sits somewhere. There's a place where that's being offered.
Mm-hmm.
There's a place where that's being brought into the world, and that place is Mary. And you'll see. Oh, I never mind. I thought that was going to be in this next one, but it's not. But I'll reference. This wasn't a prayer, but I'd heard somebody reference a poem that was discussing the opening vision in Isaiah, where the angel takes the tongs and picks up the ember and touches Isaiah's lips with the burning ember. And in this poem that said that Christ is that burning ember and that Mary was the tongs.
Yeah.
And again, there's this idea that like the vision is not about about the tongs, and you might think like what's the significance? But the significance is like something is bearing Christ into the world.
Right.
something makes it possible for that ember to come and touch Isaiah's lips.
Yeah, and so you'll also hear Mary tied symbolically to the burning bush, like the bush on Mount Sinai that Moses sees.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it wasn't actually Mount Sinai, it was Mount Horeb, wasn't it? But so the bush that Moses sees, and that's burning, but it's not consumed. So it's like this idea that God is in the bush. The bush is bearing God. Usually, if God is in something, that thing is just consumed by God.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you see that later on Mount Sinai when like God comes down on the mountain, just burns and consumes everything that's on top of the mountain, everything but Moses.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that's the contrast: is the bush is burning, but it's not consumed. And so like linking that with Mary is like, she's the vessel which God is in, which means she's burning, but God has made her holy, so she's not destroyed by the fire.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, some of the significance then of like, what's the point of all these symbols? Because I talk about them on the one hand as being nice poetry, but also if you conceive of like, okay, Mary is the tongs that carries that ember.
Right.
You recognize how does you yourself fill that same role. I mean, like I bear Mary into the world, or like I can be the thing that delivers Christ to the mouth of another.
Yeah, so like these things, like these prayers and these hymns and stuff are like deep meditations on the way in which God acts in the world. Like that's fundamentally what they are.
Yeah, and the way God enters into the world.
Yeah, right. And the consequence of not having those is that Christians are just very, very confused as to how God works in the world.
Mm-hmm. And to how they would bring Christ into the world.
Yeah, right.
And I think to put it into more, like, to bring it into our modern time, like you just said, if you approach Christianity, as many of us do nowadays in the West, with more of a rationalist approach, the Marian prayers and the Marian approach is absolutely going to violate your sensibilities, because, I mean, it has to, because it's like you're not leaving any room for the symbolism and substance of anything. You have to be able to explain why you would say to Mary, save us, Theotokos, or anything like that. And you can't in a rational way, because it's not in any way rational at all. Like, I mean, think about it. God coming into the world with Mary as the vessel with which through that happens is in no way rational whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
it's like, it's not, and you can't, like, you very quickly start to get stuck in the mud when you start to go down the road of trying to make it so.
Yeah, and I think that's why you bring up the symbolism of the burning bush, because like the idea of a bush being on fire but not burning just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go down this road too much because I don't have too much biblical that I could say about it, but like, Mary, or the feminine, is also mystery, like the unexplainable and the incomprehensible.
Right.
Okay, I'll go on. I just got one other prayer on here. Mary, Mother of God, honorable tabernacle of sweet ointments, make me through your prayers a chosen vessel, that I may receive the sanctification of your Son. And I have less of a comment to make on that than what I do on the others. I mean, we could talk about tabernacle of sweet ointments, but basically just to say, like, in prayer after prayer, you see this is all about receiving Christ.
Right.
And that's the whole point of bringing Mary into these particular prayers anyways.
Yeah, and again, I think it's important to stress this, even though we've already said it, that these prayers appear on the surface as though, like, I'm asking Mary to save me, or I'm asking Mary to make me worthy. And that's not what's going on. What's going on is you're appealing to God as he works, in this case through Mary. So, like, just in the same way that I would appeal to John or to Aaron to help me in a situation. So it's like what I'm doing practically. If I'm struggling and I'm dealing with something and I go to you for advice, that's exactly the same thing as what you're doing in those prayers. Like I'm asking you, like, save me and,
Yeah,
and make
it's
me
not
worthy.
more righteous to just spend all of your time in your room praying about it,
Right.
like in a totally independent, isolated
Right.
kind of way.
Yeah, because that's in denial of the way in which God works.
Right.
I mean, unfortunately, you do have a lot of modern Christians who think that, who think, well, you need to not, you know, be open and share your struggles, because then you're not trusting God. It's like, yes, I am. I'm trusting God as He works through His saints, as He works through His church, because that's what He says to do. Like, I can't be self-sufficient in my spirituality.
Yeah.